All right, guys. This is DJ Wolf Live. I'm gonna talk about this right quick. This is a kind of a sombering moment for me. Talking about this when I was a kid, young kid. Matter of fact, I probably and my dad was still in his 20s too. He watched the show, the horror host show. Back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and I think up to their age, and maybe the 90s. Because I know there was one out called Ghoulardi. He's been out for years and years. But anyway, so they had this horror movie show hosts. They needed a time slot before they started doing all these talk shows, late night talk shows, and right around that time too. The horror movie shows on Friday and Saturday nights were real popular. And their alternatives to going to the movie theaters and all of that, when they had horror movies that were still around. A lot of them were B movies and some of them were top flight. So Cleveland, we had one, a guy named Ghoulardi. And he was one of them. Now, his real name was Ernie Anderson. Ernie Anderson, I think, started out in radio, I think, something like that. Then he went to television. He worked with a guy named Chuck who was, I think, he was a producer and a cameraman. And he also was from Cleveland. And later on, they teamed up working at a local NBC station along with another guy who worked in production named Tom Conway, who became Tim Conway. I'll get to that in a second. And they eventually had left one station and went to another station and started and produced their own show. And then later on, Tim had left to go to Hollywood to go on a show, a network series called McHale's Name for ABC. Yeah, I know the history. Ernie did a show called Ghoulardi, which was he took over. He became the local horror show host for a lot of the horror movies that they had. A lot of films that hadn't been seen in a while. A lot of the horror movies, and he made the show real popular. He ran on the local station, the CBS affiliate, for about 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years, something like that. It was 3 years, 3.5 years. And Chuck was a sidekick / producer, kind of like with Howard Stern and Bob Bowie, right along that line. So if you think of Howard Stern and Bob Bowie, that was Ghoulardi and Chuck. So anyway, Ghoulardi left in 1966. He also went to Hollywood. Later on became the voiceover guy for ABC. If those of you old heads remember, he was the guy when The Love Boat first came out, and he did other voiceovers for other stuff too. He was the guy who used to say, "The Love Boat." I can't get it deep with it. Love Boat. I used to hear it all the time, and I come to find out, that was Ghoulardi, Ernie Anderson. But anyway, so Chuck teamed up later on, right around the time Ernie left his show in 1966 to team with a guy named Bob Wells, who was nicknamed Houlihan. And he was a weather guy for the local CBS affiliate station, Channel 8 up there in Cleveland. My dad my dad told me he had worked there. I don't know, I forgot what he did. I think he might have been part of production, but he said he worked there for a little bit. As I know, he said he knew some of the guys there. I know he knew John Rinaldi, who was Lil John, who I'm going to get to in a second. I actually had to run in with him personally myself. So anyway, he teamed up with Bob, and Bob became Houlihan, and the show became Houlihan and Big Chuck. That became a smash hit right behind Ghoulardi from 1966 to 1979. I actually watched pretty much all 13 years of the show because my dad was a big fan of it, and he was still in his 20s watching shows back then. So I grew up watching them as a little boy for a long time. I didn't really know much about Ghoulardi until a little later on. And then the Ghoul came on another channel. The Ghoul actually used to work with Houlihan and Big Chuck for one time as a PA, who was on another station. He did his own thing for a number of years. He was a big deal in Cleveland and Detroit, in the Midwest region, around the Midwest section of the country. I'll talk about it on another podcast. But anyway, so Chuck later on, when Houlihan, Bob Wells, decided to go to another television station, he left the show in '79, and up came Lil John Ronaldo, who had been with the show for a number of years prior to that, but now he became the second banana on the show. In other words, he was the co-host of the show and became Big Chuck and Lil John, and ran. I didn't even know it ran from 1979 up to 2007. That's a long time. It ran there 50 years on the show. I was like, wow. I didn't even know it was still on until 2007, but I do remember the finale that they did. And but anyway, to make a long story short, I actually got the news yesterday that Big Chuck Shadowski, aka Big Chuck, had passed away at the age of 90. And I have reflected on it because I know a lot of Friday nights, man. My dad was running the streets, man. That's the show we used to watch. Me and my brother and sister used to watch all the time. I mean, for years we watched the show. Friday night, stayed up, got to watch the show. I can honestly say one of the creepiest movies I've ever seen on Big Chuck and Lil John, with Houlihan and Big Chuck, was Carrie. Because it was still a Houlihan and Big Chuck when I saw it was Carrie. Carrie was the movie. The year after it came out, man, creeped the hell out of me at 2 a.m. when the hand, at the end of the movie, when the hand came up out the grave. That scared that living daylights out. It really did. That was the creepiest thing I think I ever saw of any of the movies he showed. But usually they show a lot of B movies, but then they show some R-rated movies like Carrie. I think Carrie might have been one of the first R-rated movies I think I've ever seen on Houlihan and Big Chuck. But now I keep the light. Then I kept the light on after that. But anyway, yeah, it was great times back then. But me and my friends would actually come over and watch the show with us sometime. He stayed around the corner from us, and he used to come over and watch the show with us when we was kids. And yeah, it was fun times, man. Fun times. Yeah, so really sad to hear about that, man. I was a big fan of Chuck, man, for a long time. I never got to meet neither one of those guys. Matter of fact, I don't think I met any of the guys from that television station. No. But it did. Chuck had a chance to go to Hollywood, from what I heard. I think Chuck might have did a TV show. Might have did a cameo on a TV show or something like that. I know they've had a lot of known guests that was on a number of CBS shows that appeared on Houlihan and Big Chuck for years. You know, and they knew about the show. You know, they knew about Chuck. But Ernie Anderson and Tim Conway went to the fame and fortune behind that. And Chuck stayed back in Cleveland. But Chuck was a Cleveland legend. Chuck was a he was a big deal, man. You know, to millions of viewers around the area. You know, and I appreciate him doing the thing that he did for all these years, man, as a horror show host and all around like guy. You know, in terms of what they did on television. Because the television, and like John Rinaldi said, the show was pure plain fun. It really was. There was no vulgarity, no sexual innuendos, nothing like that. It was just pure plain fun, and it was very funny. You know, it was very funny. Now, I will say this on a side note. It was 1981. I was still in high school. My dad personally knew John too, John Rinaldi, who was Lil John, and Lil John owned at the time owned a jewelry store on 9th and Euclid. I don't know if it's still there or not. Matter of fact, Lil John's still around. They interviewed him recently. But anyway, as far as for what I saw yesterday, and at the time I was in high school. I think me and a buddy of mine played hooky from school one day. I remember it was on a Wednesday or something like that, in the middle of the week. And we stood by the front of the store. I don't know if he was afraid the two young black guys were trying to rob the store or not. He said, yeah. He ran to us twice and did that. And he was serious. And I was like, okay, we left. But we were just happy to see him. So, and that was the real reason we did it. But anyway, though, my dad was a patriot of his jewelry store. That's all good, though, man. You know, So I mean, I am sad to hear about Chuck, man. Chuck, man, he was a Cleveland legend. Did a lot of funny skits, and a couple of well-known Clevelanders who worked with him came on to fame and fortune, and Chuck became a Cleveland legend. Rest in peace, buddy. Steve Wolf.